Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm your host FAIZA NAQVI with a prayer. May Allah keep you all safe, healthy and blessed. And may Allah hasten the appearance of Imam of our time, and may we become the true companion of our Imam, inshallah. Ameen. Today the topic we are about to discuss is related to obviously updates regarding Gaza and kind of humanitarian crisis going on over there, along with the assassination of Laruri and Raza Musfi, and the address Hassan Nasrullah has given yesterday, and the situation in Kerman. So there is a lot of things which are going on in the region. Is that a provocation of regional war from Israel, and are they trying to drag this whole situation into a regional proper fight between Iran and Israel? So we need to see what are the connection between all these kind of assassinations, and what would Israel achieve out of these assassinations, because we have seen the history, like if you see Yasser Arafat was assassinated, Sheikh Al Yassin was assassinated, and there are many more examples of this kind of assassination we have in history. So does that assassination is going is this going to help Israel in some way, or it would still help Hamas to get more stronger, and they come out more stronger in future? In the same way, assassination of General in Raza Musfi in Damascus is also a very concerning aspect. So we need to see what is going on, and what is going to happen, and how it is dragging the situation in such a way that it would provoke a war in the region. So what would happen next? I will talk about it in further details. We do have a panel of guests with us, and we'll move on to our guests. We have Sister Fahima Muhammad, and she is analyst, and she is a life coach as well. So she and Syed Mohsin Abbas, who is always with us, analyst, broadcaster, and kind of intellectual as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really honored to have you both on the show. Thanks a lot for that. Sister Fahima, so first of all, I would ask you regarding the situation in Gaza, especially from the perspective of humanitarian crisis which is going on in there, because we have seen yesterday they did attack the hospital as well, and small babies and children and women and vulnerable people are over there, and everyone even living in the tents or living on the streets or in the hospitals or any kind of UN places or places where they can take refuge are not safe enough for anyone at the moment, whether they are journalists or whether they are anyone. So how would you respond to that? What are your thoughts on that, and how do you see this situation?
I think if we watch and we hear a lot, because I've been analyzing and reporting and researching on this for the last 10 weeks, and seeing a lot of the actual ministers speak on Israeli TV, they're actually very outspoken as to what their sort of agenda is, and the fact that they have had so much people talking about the fact that they want to see the whole area of Palestine for themselves. That's what they believe in, and they do see the Palestinians as less. They do feel that at the end of the day that the Jews, the Israelis that are there living are the ones that are entitled. So with that kind of talk, they are actually taking it out into action, and that we can see unfold within our eyes a genocide. But on top of that, we are getting reports from the UN, Amnesty International. We have lots of spokespeople from their end who, the West usually listen to when it comes to different areas of the world, but unfortunately are ignoring, because it's this part of the world and these sort of people which represent a different category and demographic and background, then it is ignored. And again, all those statistics to say this is the worst atrocities that's ever been unfolded in this side of the world, even not in the Second World War or anywhere else. There have been reports even in Ukraine, for example, that over 2 years maybe a significant amount of people have been obviously, killed there. But when it comes to just 2-3 months, that number that has happened with over 25,000 and so much more counting under the rubble and not even sort of declared, has not even, can't even comprehend. So there's no, empathy, there's no compassion when it comes to children and women and all of these rules that apply in the West when it comes to the war and the rules of war. It is not applicable to this sort of like area, to this kind of people, to this kind of situation. And again, we're seeing a double standard, we're seeing the hypocrisy unfold, and no one is able to stop this, because at the end of the day, the main players are on board and it's continuous. And when they talk about terrorism, we can actually define terrorism by even what's unfolding in the last few hours and days, with people even Israel entering into other countries, and even because they haven't been successful in the fact of declaring taking over sort of Hamas or the leaders or anywhere, even though they've said that they were under civilian sort of like buildings, the hospitals and schools. So I guess in a way they're not winning in that sense for their agenda. So they've had to expand, and they would not have expanded unless they had the go ahead from the major allies that exist right now with them.
Thank you, Sister Fahima. So it looks like they are hiding behind these, hiding their defeat under the lives of innocent people, and they are now trying to assassinate the leader of other countries in other places and trying to win the war through these means. So, Muslim Bhai, first of all, I would like you to discuss something regarding what happened yesterday in Iran. Because at the moment we don't have any significant reports which are reflecting. I don't, as far as I know, I don't know. If anyone has asked that anyone has taken the responsibility of that attack which has happened in Kerman yesterday, and 100 plus people were obviously martyred near Qasim Soleimani cemetery. And so how would you respond to this? What is the situation there and why it has happened? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, any terrorist attack that happens on the soil of the Islamic Republic of Iran, one doesn't need any kind of hyper-analysis or intelligence reports. You don't need to do any huge research. Iran only has one major enemy, and it's a combination of the, I'd say, the Anglo-Western axis. It's essentially Israel included, and Britain, America. These are the prime movers, but Germany and the rest are not far behind. There is only one enemy. That is it for Iran. And any attack that happens, the money trail, the paper trails, the terrorist trails, the training of these people, the actual logistics and the actual ability to do such things, they're perfectly in the powers of the Mossad, the MI6, the American CIA, etc. These agencies are there precisely for these kinds of activities, and they do it on a regular basis. We've seen those operations carried out with the IRGC's, say, Razi, who was assassinated, Razi Mousavi, assassinated in Damascus. We saw it with nuclear scientists that Israel and Mossad directly did over many, many years. And of course, they've obviously carried out a similar attack, what I'd call an extrajudicial killing, murder, assassination, state-sponsored terrorism, with the very senior Hamas leader in Beirut. All of these represent essentially acts of terrorism, a word that the same Anglo-Zionist empire likes to label Muslims with. And they've continuously hammered this equation, really equating Islam with terrorism, equating Muslims with terrorism, equating Iran with terrorism, when all the while every group I can name, let me start, Al-Jundullah on the borders of Iran and Afghanistan, Western-backed, TTP in Pakistan, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, Western-backed. Let's move over to Jabhat al-Nusra or Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in Syria, Western-backed. Well, let's move further into the Kurdish regions and all of the terror groups that make incursions into Iran, Western-backed. Of course, I could go on. There are endless numbers of these. The Shabab down in Africa, there is an endless list. Add to this then the puppet terrorists, the Al Sauds, for instance, who facilitate the transportation of food to Israel at a time when Palestinians are starving, who also facilitate the destruction of any Yemeni missiles that want to attack Eilat and Israeli forces who are oppressing the Palestinians. The same Saudis who underground do deals and are creating a sort of neoliberalism in the holiest places of Islam and Muslims, are totally in league with Israel. And of course, the overtly open ones like Morocco and Bahrain and Jordan and Turkey and Egypt, the list is endless. The problem really is that the terrorism and the promoters of terrorism are in power in the Muslim world, in most of the 56 countries of the world. The terrorists are in the city of London. They sit in Wall Street. They sit in Westminster. They sit in the corridors of power with Israeli lobby groups. They organize and plan and manufacture. An excellent example of it is, of course, ISIS, which were wholly solely a creation of the CIA combined with the Israeli Mossad. And if you look at the amount of terrorism that occurred, and yet the game that was played was that they were Muslims and they wanted a khilafah, and the ISIS were the worst thing since sliced bread, I suppose, or whatever. They made them out to be the most terrifying thing for Western capitals in the world. And in reality, all ISIS did was kill Muslims. All ISIS did was kill resistance Muslims. All ISIS did was attack the axis of resistance and anybody who was against Israel. And what did Israel do? They took in the ISIS injured and they gave them medication and supported them on the Syrian borders. So you see this link between the so-called capitals of the West, which talk about democracy and equality and women's rights and love, peace and harmony, and how they want to be so good to the world, and how they're economically helping us all. In reality, what we've got is a viper, which is actually essentially a wolf dressed as sheep, and now they're being exposed. Gaza and the Palestinians, if all the other false flags that they've done, all the other, whether it's everything from the climate change nonsense through to viruses and COVID, through to the economic decline and austerity, you can look at 9/11 and the war on terror, all of these false flags. Okay, none of them, people didn't buy into them easily because they said, oh no, it's conspiracy theories and blah, 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 But where is the conspiracy theory now? Where is the conspiracy theory in every one of those little children being pulled out, lifeless, limbs hanging from them, blood dripping, bones crushed? Is that a conspiracy theory? And are the bombs which the Americans are supplying, the 125,000 tons worth of weaponry and bombs and arms estimated that lands up in Haifa port, is that a conspiracy? Is American finance for Israel of $5-6 billion a year, is that a conspiracy? Is the daily exercise of killing innocent civilians a conspiracy? Of course not. And what's happened is that they're exposed. As soon as the Houthis and the Yemen, I shouldn't say Houthis, I should say Ansar Allah and the Yemenis, the actual Yemeni people, until they blockaded or began the blockade of Bab al-Mandeb, you saw there was no unity between these international community wallahs. Where was the unity to stop the war, create a ceasefire, to give a deterrent to Israel? They couldn't get together for that. But now America, Germany, Britain, Japan, you name it, amongst this axis of evil, all are united in saying that Yemen must not stop the trade that comes to the Suez via the Bab el-Mandeb Straits. So okay, so now you're worried about international trade and prices going up and the economy suffering, and your people here in the West suffering because of that, and your government's suffering, but you didn't care about the suffering of Palestinians. So you're racist. So you're supremacists. So that's what you are. This is what you've been exposed as. And that's exactly what should make the people of these countries very uncomfortable, because we are all complicit. I live in this country. I've never voted in my life, and I never will vote, because I morally object to the people who govern us in a way which puts economy over morality. And that's exactly what they do every time. Where their economics and where their own power and their interests come in, they will kill, murder, maim children, innocent. It doesn't matter to them. And they're no different from the Israeli extremist, violent, crypto-Nazi, fascist Israeli leaders. There is no difference between Netanyahu when they say, oh, he's a bloodthirsty monster. No. Sunak and Biden are no less a bunch of bloodthirsty maniacs. They're psychopaths. They literally, if they were diagnosed officially by the psychiatry institutions, I can guarantee you they would be diagnosed as narcissistic, psychopathic maniacs. And they're basically puppeted by even worse narcissist psychopaths who run the money mafia. I think that's enough of a start, just to give people perspective about what's actually, what the reality is. You know, get away from these illusions of what Western media gives you about, oh, Israel is fighting Hamas. And no, it's a bunch of absolute genocidal, psychopathic, moneylender mafia trying to control the resources of the world, and who do not care about killing your children, their children, anybody's children, so long as they make money. And if it was some white kids in Palestine who happened to be in that territory and they happened to want it, they would kill white kids. They would kill European kids as and when necessary. They have no morality. They are savages, uncivilized savages.
That's a wonderful start, Mohsin, you have taken. So, Sister Fahima, you have been obviously discussing about Gaza situation in very depth from past many days. So, what are your thoughts on the assassination which has happened in Damascus and in recent assassination of Al-Aruri as well? So what do you think, or how do you see it, like what they are trying to achieve through these kind of target killings outside the country and going to somebody else's country is obviously a violation of international law as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
The violation of these international laws, unfortunately, does not apply to these kind of countries. They've been set up already, and even looking, and if you do a Google search of anyone that has been actually exposed and taken into any sort of instruction to do anything further and condemned by the ICC, unfortunately, are mainly people which is outside the West. So when it comes to the West, it seems like as if they are exempt, because it was actually started out by them in the first place. And like Sayyid Mohsin mentioned, it's just the fact that, you know, whatever they call as terrorists, it actually is whatever they say and they do applies to everyone else, but they are okay with it when it comes to themselves. And the one thing is, Israel is clear that they realize they cannot defeat the Palestinians alone, and so they're going to look for an excuse for the US to directly go into war, and they're going to actually provoke, whether it's going to be Iran or anywhere else, and that's what they've been trying to do for many weeks now in order to provoke. It's all about that, because they really need to continue with this, not just for the agenda of, you know, claiming in the propaganda that they're going after the resistance, but the fact that they need that land for the gas. They need it. Again, it's exactly what Sayyid Mohsin mentioned. It's all about money and power, and obviously there's threat there of China. So at the end of the day, they have to have their own and to build their own. And so there is definitely, backing. And they would not have entered into, whether it's Syria, Lebanon, or Iran, without the backing and the go-ahead of the United States. So they are brave enough to do that, knowing that at the end of the day, they all follow the same sort of agenda. They are definitely shaking hands and doing deals behind this. So I think the provocation there is the main reason for it to continue, so that they can have what they need. If you look at even history, and it talks about Israel was kind of formed in 1948, and through that the PLO was formed in 1964. Then you have the Israeli occupied and annexed Gaza in the West Bank in 1967, and then Hamas was formed in 1987. Then you've got Israel invaded Lebanon in 1978, and Hezbollah was formed in 1982. Israel is the problem, so we need to educate ourselves on that. They're even now talking about, forget we were talking in the UK about immigrants going to Rwanda. Now they've got their own proposal of sending the Palestinians and as a sort of like a voluntary sort of immigration to the Congo. So, it's like, so all these plans are unfolding. So they have been waiting for this. And the October the 7th was just an exercise, probably even, which again, they say the evidence is not there with regards to things that, is proclaimed that they themselves also killed a lot of the civilians that was there on the October the 7th, and they have a plan to do that in order so that no one actually gets away, not even their own people. So absolutely, they are brutal in every way possible. There was even a document that I found actually during my research exactly to sort of like enhance what Sayyid Mohsen said. And this was one of the psychiatrists that actually was seeing Netanyahu for many years, who actually could not handle the job themselves of saying how psychopathic he was. Then he also, the psychiatrists themselves, actually was claimed to have killed themselves. So, these things, the evidence, everything is there. And now, yes, we are not blinded by it, but it's the government versus the people. And we are not now in a democratic sort of world, as we say. And clearly we can see even the polls that were there for, a ceasefire, for even in the UN for ceasefire, with countries, with people, with protests. And again, the people's voices do not seem to make a difference. So we are not the democratic sort of society, environment, and government that they say and proclaim at the end of the day, because it's not clearly giving what the people want. And even the ones that are sitting on top saying certain things, how can we even differentiate between even Rishi Sunak currently compared to even Keir Starmer, where before we could even differentiate between the Labour as well as even the Conservatives? So the choices are very much, sort of like, overriding each other. They very much, folding each other. So it's very difficult even for us living here, knowing that if we are going to try and say, yes, uphold your values, but then we know from the fact that, centuries ago with colonization, they've only just polished themselves up nicely in order to do the same thing again. So in a way, we shouldn't really be surprised. But the fact that now, those voices are trying to make them uphold their own values. So hopefully there should be some sort of, with South Africa, hopefully putting forward this kind of claim and suing Israel and putting forward sort of an investigation, which will be in the next couple of days. We should see how that unfolds. And maybe, just like how, with the actual, the military and in Yemen that actually persuaded, even if it wasn't for the right reasons, but hopefully this can maybe call for some sort of like reflection as to not go any further if they are going to be called to investigate.
Thank you, sister. Brother Mohsen, sister has mentioned so many aspects which are very important as well. So how do you see, like before Raza Musi, when he was assassinated, there was a first interview from the David Cameron which has been seen, and he reflected in that interview, in essence, like he was saying like Hamas is not a problem, for instance, and these other groups are not problem. The problem is Iran, and we should focus on that. So, in a nutshell, that interview was portraying that. So, how do you see that claim by David Cameron, and how it is connected to the current situation of assassination of these two leaders from who were assassinated recently?
Well, David Cameron is the man who for the money mafia, put Britain into the Brexit hellhole that they're in now already. So Cameron himself stands on no legs. He has no concern for his own British people, let alone the population of Iran or any other nation. So these kind of discredited characters who have basic immorality, I won't even go into the immoral actions which these people are well known for. They enjoy pigs, exercises with pigs, which I can't even talk about, as if those are normal parts of a civilized life. These drunken elitists who at a very early age become incorporated within a systemically corrupt mechanism, who become blackmailed as well, who do all sorts of things in the background, which we don't know about, but the deep state and the money mafias do, who also owe all their money and all their finances to corporate money mafia institutions. What does one expect from them? And then, of course, the really bizarre thing is that we elect them. We don't do our checks on these people. We don't look at their morality. We do not look at their objectives. We don't look at their origins. We have no idea of where their money comes from and where they spend it. We have no idea who their associations are, how loyal they are to their countries. I would say to the people of Britain, for instance, someone like David Cameron urges you to go and commit, essentially pave the way for committing acts of terrorism, because you have to link Cameron's words with the terror attack in Iran, in Kerman. Because no sooner has he spoken about the fact that Iran needs to be punished and Iran needs to be taught a lesson and Iran needs to be put in its place and it should be made to understand. What do you think that did? What do you think that meant? When the Foreign Secretary of of Great Britain and Biden and the Americans all get together behind Israel, is giving the green light to Mossad to say, go ahead, we will not stop you. And we'll make sure you're protected in the UN. Anybody tries to go for you for doing these extrajudicial killings or acts of terror, we'll simply veto them in the UN, which also, by the way, belongs to us. You know, us, the Anglo-Zionist money mafia. So here you've got, it's all sewn up, isn't it? You know, whichever way you go, you've got this mechanism which they created. Essentially, what they've done is they've created the biggest illusion of freedom for the people of the West. Yet they got them subjugated in a mechanism and a system which absolutely enslaves them. Because from education onwards, from school onwards, they've got them right over a barrel. They're, you know, I remember my father saying to me once when I was younger, bless him, he said, the day your school gave you free milk, I wasn't happy with it because I felt that I was the one who was supposed to be giving you and providing you. I was your father, I'm providing for you. But this business of the state providing meant that there was some sort of loyalty that you owed to them. Now, that's a very interesting way of looking at things, because if from a childhood age you're put in the hands of a state which you become beholden to, which trains you, which educates you, which then also is linked to a corporate system, which then takes you on and gives you jobs all the way along the line. What they're doing is they're wrenching you from your mother and father and from your natural family support unit to their support unit. And their support unit comes at a price, at a cost. And that, whereas the parental one has no cost. It's given freely. The establishment's link, though, is that you don't get a job if you don't get your degree. You don't get to enjoy all the niceties that the welfare state can give, or the niceties that the state provides, or the protection. You will be excluded, and you will be cut out from all the goodies they give you if you do not conform. And that's what we've got. The problem is most people on the ground know that people like Cameron are corrupt. Most people know these politicians are corrupt. You talk to an average person on the street, they'll say, yeah, they don't take them credibly. But yet, what can they do? They were never empowered with the ability to question that system. They don't have the management capability to organize an alternative system. The managers that are trained and exercised are given huge salaries, so they continue working for the system with the Zionist money lender system. And therefore, anybody who wants to propose an alternative system or alternative way of life, or a more peaceful existence, or even, heaven forbid, say, look, we shouldn't put economics over morality. We shouldn't think it's okay to kill children so that we can be rich and we can stay comfortable. That should not be something that we as a civilization should do. And I think this is what we have to look at, is David Cameron and the likes of him represent a civilizational failure. They represent a barbarity of oppressors being in power. And they represent the defeat and the subjugation and the enslavement of ordinary people who may have values which are prophetic. Now, prophetic values, divine values, sacred values, Quranic values, Abrahamic values, whichever way you want to put them, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not plunder, thou shalt not backbite, whatever, all of those values, which everybody will kind of nod their heads to and be in agreement with, when it comes to their pockets, when it comes to their economics, when it comes to letting the government get on with doing what they do, we are not prepared to make the sacrifice that is required to change that system. And they know this. They play on the psychology of fear, and demoralization. They do it to the Gazans. They put them in a 15-minute city, which is now being bombed and blasted, a concentration camp. And they control their food. They terrorize them with lack of medication. They bomb their hospitals. They kidnap their children and take them off into prisons as and when they desire. What is that? That essentially is everything that this democracy we live in talks about. What Hitler did to the Jews in Auschwitz and in Poland and in Germany. So what's the difference? Could somebody please explain the difference to me between what Hitler did, and you all are appalled by fascism and Nazism and Hitler, yet here you're seeing Gaza, a 15-minute city, which again, by the way, I'm going to link to Agenda 2030, because of course Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and people like Hariri, the kind of philosophers of their great neoliberal new surveillance capitalism that they're trying to roll out, where all the cameras are watching you all the time, your own phone is watching you and listening to you, you don't need spies anymore. We're investing in those spies being right with us by our hearts every moment of the day. This is the society when you don't have a plan, when you don't have a set of values, when you don't have a civilizational dream which is based on prophetic divine values. What happens is you become aimless and you hand over that dream and that future to money mafia parasites who then shape the dream, and they can shape that dream in the form of Gaza being bombed, Palestinians being dispossessed. They can shape that dream in terms of vilifying Muslims, good, honest, decent Muslims as being terrorists. They can vilify institutions as terrorist organizations. So you see, what at the root of all of this is that there is a fundamental barbarity in the civilization, and we have got an existential war of civilizations now. Huntington talked about it, and people try to balk. The reality is that the civilizational war is not between the West and the East. The war is between the oppressors and the money mafia parasites and the oppressed. There are only two categories of people: the oppressed and the oppressor. And if you can start thinking of your reality in that sense, and when you look at your own mortgage and you think of yourself as being very lucky to have a mortgage and to have a house, you know the word mortgage means mort gauge. Mort means death, gauge means grip. So they're even telling you, we've got you in a mortgage, we've got you in a death grip. And if they don't give you a mortgage, well, they're telling you now, Klaus Schwab is saying to you, you will have nothing and be happy. So we've all got to sing this new tune of renting houses and whatnot. So what freedom have you got? Once the range of houses you've got can't be afforded, and they put the rents up so far, and that's where all this business is going. This is the other business of war. The result of war is that actually they can have an excuse to say, oh, well, we're losing money and economy's disaster because the war in the Middle East, because of that, the oil prices are going to go up and your energy prices are going through the roof. There's no such thing. They print money out of thin air. It's lies. They just use, whether it's a war, whether it's peace, whatever the lies and the illusion that comes from Western media in particular is all designed to just make you fear, be demoralized, and be subjugated, and not be able to think about the solutions clearly. And the solutions are only found when you can critically question, and we can go to the root of the problem. And I always say, don't look at Gaza. Don't just cry over the kids there. If you want to stop it, go to the root of the problem. Do not talk to me just about the symptoms. The symptoms of that problem, maybe Ayatollah Khamenei and the Islamic Revolution, the resistance axis, they're confronting it. You're not going to go and turn up there and fight wars. You must do your research, become aware, and look at the system you live in, and you must challenge that system by any means necessary. And that means by word, by deed, by pen, by protest. It means by education, even if it means just educating your own child, your children. You must make them aware of what is going on. And to sleepwalk into tyranny, sleepwalk into oppression based on fear and demoralization makes you a coward. It makes you not a Muslim, because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had all of this kind of oppression. He had economic sanctions put on him. He was thrown out of his house. He wasn't forced to leave his home. He was attacked left, right, and center. His city was attacked. They deluged him with all sorts of weaponry and arms. They did exactly the same thing, and the Jews of Khaybar and the Jews of Qurayza were all involved. They were all involved then. From time immemorial, since then, they've had these habits of trying to destroy the people of goodness, their own prophets, every one of them was hounded and harassed. So I'm afraid we're dealing with an existential crisis of civilizations, of civilizational values, and it's something which is a battle that's gone on from time immemorial. It will be concluded with the return of Imam Mahdi Akhir Zaman. It will be concluded with Hazrat Isa, Jesus Christ, Messiah will arrive, and they will sort all these people out. No doubt, the victory is with the oppressed. The truth is with the oppressed. Our job is simply to stand up and be counted when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us these tests, to say, let me see what you do in this situation. Make sure you don't fail the test. That's all I can say. And part of that test is we stand up and we speak truth to power. And to corrupt power, you must speak the truth bravely and consistently, and show them that you do not fear.
Thank you. Sister Faima, how you would analyze, obviously, as Brother Mohsin has mentioned, different aspects of the situation. If we look at it from the perspective of Gaza and the current situation going on in the region, is it provocating some kind of war? And what they would achieve out of that war, and what is the US role in it? Because there is one oppressed and one is oppressor. So how you analyze the whole situation in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, the analysis is there. I mean, we are also bringing back, unfortunately, we've got 20 years ago today, George Bush and Tony Blair launched an illegal war in Iraq, leading to the death of 1 million people, the same sort of scenario, but today they're rich and rewarded and free, whilst, for example, Julian Assange, who actually was imprisoned and exposing the war crimes, and this is the result for people that do speak up, unfortunately. So they are setting a precedent. If you are also going to stand up, they are changing the meaning of our words, which don't even belong to them, that is even in our scriptures, to make it seem like as if it's a terrorist word. For example, Allahu Akbar, which we actually use in prayer, but now it's seen as something which is jihadist, as in jihadist. Even the word itself is looked upon as only war, terror, and sort of like Islamism, or whatever they want to call it. It doesn't even exist in our vocabulary. So at the end of the day, the propaganda is consistently there. We've got the digital space, which is opening up, and especially the young people that are speaking out more, which they have less to lose, and they are educating themselves. They are looking at alternative media, and also people that are reporting, not just from the grounds of Gaza, but also people that are speaking up, even in the West, that have changed their minds. They have been indoctrinated from a young age with a very, very simplistic mind and ideology, but even that's opening up even to the Israelis and the Jews, which are now also speaking out. So we have a background of people that is not seen and heard of before. So in a way, even if this war has caused so much devastation, it really has made the mask fallen off as to what is actually happening, and especially in this day and age where people cannot actually ignore it. They cannot just be quiet. But again, there is always a pushback, so that there's even more operations to censure sort of people that are speaking, taking them away from their jobs and things like that. But again, people are outside even that job saying that this is what happened to me, this is what's happening. But people even that are celebrities that are speaking, loads of people are still putting themselves out there. I think that when it comes to the major sort of allies and the states, we know who they are, what they represent. So at the end of the day, again, like Sayyid Mohsin said, we as everyday people just have to know that we are on the right side of history, and we can do our best amongst our homes, with our family, with our community, with society. And if we are going to do things, we also have to be clever to not play into the hands of them, where even if we are going to protest, know your rights, know exactly how you can protest. If you're at work and you want to speak up, if you're at school, know what the policies say, so you do it in line with the law, so that you can say, well, actually, you talk about human rights, you talk about freedom of speech. How come it doesn't apply to us? How come we can't, say what we want to say, and we're doing it in your rules, in your ways, in your spaces? So I guess the only smarter ways to do it is to understand your rights and your ways, so that we can try to actually not fall into them, so that we can be completely cancelled from doing this, and join maybe organizations, join sort of places that when you go together as a bigger sort of space and a collective, then that could be a lot more powerful than just you going out there and being reckless and then they using that against us. For example, the marches as being hate marches, where we know there wasn't many arrests, there wasn't any disruption, maybe one or two people, but they used it out of proportion. And again, it was not something that we can say that, oh yeah, this was something that was our fault of saying that it was hate or this or that, because at the end of the day we did comply. There were organizations set up, there were rules in place, there were people that were advised. So we are getting a lot more geared up for what is coming. So there is definitely hope there. And at the end of the day, the more people that are showing up and speaking up, it will shape, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are making sort of the decisions for elections. We're the ones that are speaking up. We're the ones that are actually even stepping down from even certain, as you've seen in the Labour Party, so many people have actually made a stance. We even had in America recently, just I think a day ago, even another Palestinian who stepped down, who was also a supporter and a campaigner for Biden, who said, we cannot actually do this, going on there on, the mainstream programs to speak about this. So people are seeing and doing what they can. It just needs to be consistent, because at the end of the day, we sometimes be complacent about this, thinking that, oh, someone else is doing it and we've already done our bit and that's enough. But until we see this end, which is not unfortunately anytime soon, we have to keep the pressure going. And that pressure does work. That pressure, because we all need each other, regardless of how small or big. They need the collective in order to get elected. They need the collective in order to actually push policy across as well, up to a certain point. So we do need to be, as individuals, as strong as we can and be consistent in whatever we're doing.
Thank you, Sister Famous. Musin bhai, we are heading towards the end of the show as well. So I want to know, through the action of Israel, obviously, especially the assassination of Al-Aruri, who was in Beirut, and he was assassinated. So they are trying to provoke something. So what is that something? Are they really trying to engage the region in a regional war? Do you think it would happen? Because Iran and Hezbollah and other groups are obviously trying to take action, but they are taking it calculatedly. They are not, and what the other side want is, they want some kind of strong action from the Iran and Hezbollah and other groups for their benefit. So how do you see the situation going on? Is that going to wage a war? And as you were discussing earlier in previous comments, do you think the people within the UK, for instance, like in Pakistan, we say whatever IMF says we do, because we take money from them. Within the UK, do you think the people are reading the policies these people are making, who are our ministers and prime ministers and policy makers and stuff like that? Do you think they are looking inside the story that Sister Fahima also mentioned, Julian Assange, who was reporting their war crimes, whatever happened, and how it happened in different places in terms of war crimes, and these people are doing horrific things. So this is something happened to the person who speaks truth and gives the evidence of the truth. So they are left alone, and there is nothing which is done about them. So this is a kind of situation in which you have fear and the hope and the resistance and the hard work. How you see the whole scenario in two different ways? There are two aspects of this question, so maybe.
So your first question related to the geostrategic aims of Israel potentially in that region. So I'll deal with that first. Israel is dying. Israel is in its final phase of existence. Make no mistake about that. It's a population which is a minority in that region. It's a minority in Palestine itself. It's accumulated the level of oppression which has created a kind of resolve within the oppressed there, which can't be taken out in one generation, not two generations, not three generations. Every child who's lost a home, lost a limb, or lost a brother or a parent will grow up to be a willing volunteer for the resistance and for the insurgency. Doesn't matter what they do to Gaza. They can flatten it all as much as they like. But the hearts and spirits of these people will remain. And even if they deport them, even if they exile them, they dump them in other, it will not take away the fundamental issue that Israel and Zionist, violent, crypto-fascist, extremist, Jewish Zionists are at the heart of creating conflict and terror across the Arab world, and the Zionist Arabs are in with them. You know, so there is an alliance of Zionist Arabs. So I'm not being anti-Semitic. They're both Semitic, and they're both vile. You know, equally vile. And you know, they occupy our holy sacred places in Mecca and Medina too. Only people are too stupid to wake up to the fact that it's Zionist Saudis that actually control your holy city. So who do you think is actually controlling your sacred cities? It's not you. They don't even belong to you anymore. Just like Al-Quds doesn't belong to you, so that didn't belong to you because they defeated you in a war in 1945, and they cleared out the Ottoman Empire. After that, you had nothing. It doesn't belong to you. And these, again, the delusional things that we are running off on Hajj and say it's ours. No, the place isn't yours. It's controlled by Zionist Jews. That's what those Saudis are. It's controlled by their proxies, the Saud family. So first of all, let's get that straight. Israel's Yinon plan is important to know. The Odin Yinon plan is very famous for not only its peripheral doctrine, which means that they buy off nations which are on the exterior of their problem with the Arab world, which initially was, but now they don't even need to do that because the Arabs who were on the interior are all with them, the leadership at least. So what they've done is they've achieved already Greater Israel. How is Greater Israel not in existence already? Could somebody tell me? Egypt is theirs. Jordan is theirs. Half of Lebanon is controlled by them. Let's move on to Syria. They tried, failed. Why? Because Iran stepped in and Russia stepped in. Kuwait is theirs. Qatar is there. Qatar has the biggest U.S. Air Force base. Every one of them has military U.S. U.S. military bases established in their lands. UAE completely belongs to them. They're reavowing their relationship, their cousin relationship with their Zionist Jewish brethren, more so than any of their Muslims. They work for them. They do everything for them they want. They caused the war in Yemen, where 500,000 people, again, civilians, children, were killed. Mainly UAE and Saudi Arabia, proxy war for the Israeli Zionist American axis. So the Odin Yinon plan, which was from, and weirdly enough, let's remind ourselves of that slogan, from the river to the sea. It's a slogan which the Palestinians use. But I say, what about the Israeli Odin Yinon plan, which also says from the sea to the river? From the Mediterranean Sea to the Euphrates River belongs to Israel, Greater Israel. Have they achieved that? Well, not in Iraq, but they've got half of it, haven't they, with the Americans there? Not in Syria, but they've got a third of it with Turkey and Erdogan and the Zio Turk, Mr. Erdogan over there, who supplies them with plenty of gas and oil at this very time through Azerbaijan. These people are all in leagues with them. So where is the Greater Israel not in existence? I see it existing in Istanbul. I can see it in Baghdad. I can see that they've reached as far as Amman, the Jordan capital, Riyadh, Mecca, Medina. So wake up, for goodness sake. I mean, as a geopolitical analyst, honestly, it does take a lot of patience to sit here and often be the voice which says the obvious, which is right under our noses, but yet we want to believe the illusion that all those countries still belong to us, that these Arabs, these leaders, you think that they belong to you? Do you think they operate for your interests? When their $5 trillion of Saudi wealth has been put into American real estate, and 10, 20, 30, 40 trillions of whatever wealth they've looted from that country has been put in Swiss banks or in Wall Street, or in businesses that belong to Zionist partners that they have. Where has your wealth gone? They've taken it. The Wall Streets and the City of London and the Canary Islands and the Cayman Islands and all those offshore islands that exist, and they stuff it in their arts, in their paintings, their high-fluted paintings markets and their artificially pumped up housing markets. They've got so much money. They've stolen so much money from you. They don't even know where to put it. They have to hide it in the most ridiculous ways. Have you ever thought about why a painting is supposed to be priceless? Why does it cost so much for a single painting? It's only oil. It's only paint. Who puts the price on it? It's these people, because what they've got is so much silly money that they print off and so much wealth that they steal. They have to make you fools into sort of thinking that actually, oh no, all these things are really valuable. I mean, a little 2-bedroom flat in London is going to cost you over £1.5 million or something now. Who dictates those ridiculous, diabolical prices? Who sets these fiscal figures? These people, the same people who are bombing Gaza, the same people who are killing people in Tehran and Iran, and their regional policy. You asked me, what was it? Yes, they want a war because they know now it's slipping. Because why is it slipping? Because Ayatollah Khomeini raised an Islamic revolution which has woken up a certain segment of the world which happened to have quite a lot of money. Iran would not be able to do any of this unless it had some oil wealth. And on the back of that money, and on the back of Ayatollah Khamenei and the pure Urafa and the military boys there, they've created a hell of a headache for the Zionist money mafia. They're not fully aware because they still fell for COVID. They still fall for some of the monetary stuff, but they're trying their best. The BRICS alliance, trying to sort of move towards de-dollarization, trying to and definitely succeeding in creating a resistance economy. Iran does not rely on external, forces for most of its economy now. They're trying their best in terms of a political system which is based on the prophetic mechanism, or Imam Ali's mechanism. They're trying their best with trying to educate their children with values which are non-materialistic and try to sort of give them some spiritual values and bring back God into the lives of people. Well, these people, it's these atheist Jews, basically, Zionists, in the West, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and all their JP Morgan and all these other hoodlums, these criminals, who basically exported an entire sort of secular liberal atheism, which has left a God-sized hole in the hearts of people. They've taken God out of their lives. It's one of the biggest crimes they've committed. They've taken God out of their lives and given nothing in return except materialism. And materialism and the state cannot fill the God-sized hole which is left in the lives of people in the West. And that's why you see the depression, that's why you see the suicides, that's why you see the lack of direction, that's why you see the immorality, that's why you see hedonism, that's why you see them accepting falsehood as truth. It's all connected, sister. It's the bombings are connected to the subjugation of the Western people in this country. It's connected to the poverty around the world. It's connected to the wars that they make people do. That's connected to the whole entire things that you see in the region. If they go for it all the way, Iran will fire ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv. They will wipe Tel Aviv out. And in return, the Israelis could fire nuclear weapons at Iran and wipe out cities there. The worst case scenario is, if you're worried about Gaza, you haven't seen anything yet. If the Israeli psychopaths go on the trajectory they are, unless Russia and unless China wake up, and unless Iran and the Axis get together and say, okay, we're going to give you sufficient deterrent, and I think they are, otherwise they would have attacked Iran by now, if they thought that there wasn't going to be a World War III in which Iran could give as good as it gets, and in which Russia and China would have to step in and also secure interests, then by now the Israelis would have got what they wanted. The Americans aren't doing that because the Israelis are truly trying to provoke it. They aren't doing it because the Americans know the Straits of Hormuz will shut down, the Bab el-Mandeb will shut down, 30-40% of trade will be wiped out in the world, and there will be nuclear weapons flying, and the fallout from those nuclear weapons won't just go in the Middle East, it'll come to Europe as well. There will be a world war. Taking Iran on is going to mean a world war, in my opinion. And I think that's the only thing that's stopping the Israelis. And let's just pray that those psychopaths which are running this whole show don't go for that final option, the final solution, which is to try and nuke Tehran or something stupid like that. Because the result of that would be a world war which will not end, and in which everybody will be dragged in. So I think it's in everybody's interest right now to fight for the ceasefire, to get the Israelis to pull out and back off, and to create a solution which is permanent, one in which the Zionist psychopaths are not in power in Israel anymore, and the Palestinians are allowed to have their justice, because the Muslim people, at the end of the day, they know that they have paradise. Dying in a nuclear holocaust will mean paradise. It's not a problem. It's a problem for if you're an unbeliever. It's a big problem. The little life you think you've got, even that will be extinguished. So I would get on my little tricycle if I were most of the secular liberal atheists and run down to Downing Street and make a lot more noise about stopping nuclear holocausts, which these Israeli psychopaths are very capable of. And I'd also tell them that while I was on my little tricycle that they should also stop supplying the weapons and grow a moral backbone and stop being a bunch of lying, two-faced, hypocritical, slime balls, which most of them are, and actually do something for humanity for once in their lives. Basically, would that be appreciated, so they could actually reflect the population, who generally aren't a bad lot, to be honest.
Thank you, Mohsin bhai. We are just left with 5 minutes only, so I would take conclusive remarks from Sister Fahima. As a neuroscientist, Sister Fahima, obviously you have MSc in this subject. How do you see the impact of fear, like living in fear, like people of Gaza and around the region who are in fear of war all the time, like anything, anytime can come and kill them or their loved ones. Sometimes we are not fearful about ourselves, but we don't want our loved ones to die in front of us or be in a position like their amputated hands and limbs and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on that? How would you conclude the whole discussion? We just left with like you have 3 minutes, you can say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it's well discussed, obviously, by Sayyid Mohsin on a macro level, and a micro level here is talking about, the everyday people that are actually going through what they're going through. And as much as we have faith and we understand how this world ends for us as Muslims, going through this trauma is an experience that a lot of people do not actually come out of very easily. And even at the best of times, when faith is there, unfortunately, as the human sort of like habits take over, and, we are going to be overwhelmed with the kind of things that are going to happen, regardless if it doesn't go to even sort of like World War III, but even a ceasefire. There's so much that's going to be unraveled to sort of like start rebuilding, not just even with the reconstruction of the actual land, but more importantly of the people's sort of like mindset and their health and their well-being. So this is something that I can't even comprehend how anyone can actually get over. We've got children there, like you mentioned, with lost limbs, and we've got them seeing blood and gore in front of them, like as if you're seeing a horror movie. So it is something that we have to be prepared for, and to give much more support, not just in food and aid, but the fact that the psychological damage is going to be so, revealing. Even just watching the screens for the moment, many people of us, cannot handle that. So in a human sort of way, we just have to just pray that inshallah we do get ceasefire so we can deal with that more importantly, and actually stop even more people from, being, sort of like the collateral damage there is. And even now we've seen the new Epstein documents revealing the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, likely working with Epstein to blackmail the US office. So, we've got characters like this. We know very clearly, where they come from, who they are. So we need to be a lot more open and vocal about where these kind of people come from. There's so much evidence out there to show, and every day the news is, revealing, the characteristics, the immorality, the inhumane behavior, and the way in which they are, saying that they should be, abiding by values and laws by the West, when actually they are breaking every single one nationally and internationally. So yes, we should speak louder and harder, and inshallah we will have ceasefire if we are going to continue with the protests and continuing to actually join these groups, so that we can actually make a difference in a small way, but create it in a massive way ourselves.
Thank you so much, Sister Fahima. Thank you so much, Mohsin bhai. I'm really honored to have you both on the show for this important discussion. There are so many questions which I really wanted to ask, but the time is really a constraint for us. So thanks a lot for that. And to the viewers, I would say we are either in the side of oppressed or the oppressor. So it is really the time for each one of us to choose our side and choose it carefully, because it's gonna bring some consequences. May Allah keep all the people around the globe in peace and mercy on all of us. I'll take a leave now. Allah Hafiz.